Chapter 1. The Silent Cry Among the Stars. Commander Adrian Miles had never expected that the cold vacuum of space would become the stage for a question so simple and profound that it shattered his entire world in a single breath. The shattered moon of Eridani 4, once a thriving outpost on the fringe of civilized space, had been reduced to rubble and silence after a sudden cataclysmic attack whose perpetrators were still unknown, a mystery buried beneath layers of debris and sorrow. Adrian, a veteran starship captain tasked with reconnaissance and salvage, was part of a small crew sent to survey the devastation, to recover what could be saved and document what was lost. But amid the twisted metal and crumbling structures, what he found was far beyond any mission briefing or protocol. The moon's surface was a desolate graveyard of fractured habitats and twisted machinery. Storm clouds of cosmic dust drifted over the broken landscape, occasionally pierced by the eerie glow of distant nebulae. The air was thin and poisoned by chemical fallout, with emergency systems barely flickering to life in the ruins. Yet, in the heart of this desolation, there was a spark of fragile life, a small, shivering form huddled beneath the collapsed remains of what looked like a living quarters module. At first, Adrian thought it was a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by the isolation and endless cold. But as he drew closer, his suit's sensors confirmed it unmistakably, a living being, a child. The child was unlike any species Adrian had ever encountered. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, glowing faintly under the flickering emergency lights, as if her very flesh carried a faint bioluminescence. Her large eyes, dark and shimmering like twin black holes, stared up at him with a mixture of fear, exhaustion, and something far deeper and ancient, primal need for connection. The child's frail body was covered in ragged remnants of what might once have been clothing, torn and soiled by the moon's harsh elements. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and despite the thinness of her frame, there was a quiet dignity in the way she held her gaze, as if she carried the weight of countless lost stories in those small eyes. Adrian knelt down carefully, mindful not to startle her. His voice was calm but filled with warmth, the gentle cadence a soft contrast to the howling winds beyond the ruined walls. "Hey there, little one. I'm here to help. What's your name?" The child's lips quivered, and for a moment she remained silent, as though weighing the safety of trust. Then, with a whisper so fragile it seemed to echo in the stillness of the ruined habitat, she spoke words that would forever change the course of Adrian's life. "Will you be my father?" That single question, uttered in the midst of destruction and despair, was a thread of hope woven through the fabric of a broken universe. It struck at something deep within Adrian, a loneliness he had long buried beneath duty and hardened resolve. Years of command, of making impossible decisions and watching friends fall to the void, had left him wary of attachments. To care meant to risk pain, loss, and distraction in a galaxy where survival often required ruthless detachment. Yet, here was a child, small and vulnerable, reaching out across the chasm of language, culture, and species, offering trust with nothing but those little eyes and a plea for protection. For a long moment, Adrian was silent, the weight of that plea settling like a stone in his chest. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? How had she survived alone in the ruins of a dead colony? But none of that mattered as much as the truth in her gaze, the undeniable spark of life refusing to be extinguished. Without hesitation, he reached out and gently took her hand in his, feeling the fragile pulse beneath her skin, fragile but persistent. "Yes," he said softly, "I will." The words felt like a promise not just to her, but to himself, a promise to stand by her side no matter what the galaxy threw at them. Over the next few days, Adrian's world shifted on its axis. The child who he learned was named Lyra became the heart of his mission and the reason for his resilience. His crew, initially skeptical of the human captain's newfound charge, grew to share his protective instinct, their own hearts softening as they witnessed the bond form between the broken man and the mysterious child. Lyra was silent most of the time, communicating in strange melodic hums and gestures that Adrian slowly began to understand. She carried with her an aura of sorrow and ancient wisdom far beyond her years, as if the devastation she survived was part of a greater cosmic tragedy. The station's medics worked tirelessly to stabilize her fragile health. Their scans revealed that Lyra's biology was unlike anything cataloged, a fusion of organic tissue and energy fields that shimmered faintly like starfire beneath her skin. She needed constant care, nourishment synthesized from rare compounds harvested from the moon's toxic soil, and above all, the presence of someone she trusted. Adrian became that presence, the anchor in the storm, the steady hand that brought comfort amid chaos. As days turned to weeks, the rumors spread beyond Eridani 4. The story of a lone human commander raising an alien child in the shadows of a destroyed colony stirred whispers in distant starports and political chambers. Some viewed Lyra as a symbol of hope, a living testament to the resilience of life itself. Others saw her as a potential key to ancient secrets lost in the cataclysm, a biological enigma to be studied, exploited, or weaponized. Adrian, however, cared for none of the politics swirling around them. To him, Lyra was simply a child, his child now, by choice and fate. He dedicated himself to her survival with a fierce determination born of guilt and hope, vowing that no matter what dangers lurked in the darkness of space, he would protect her. Together, they became an unlikely family, bound not by blood but by the unbreakable ties of trust forged in the crucible of loss. But the galaxy was not a forgiving place. Shadows gathered on the horizon, forces that would not let the past remain buried, and secrets that threatened to unravel everything Adrian had fought to build. The silent cry of a little alien girl had awakened a storm far greater than either of them could have imagined, and as they faced the unknown, Adrian realized that staying by her side was not just a choice, it was a destiny. In the days following that fateful discovery, Adrian found his world shrinking and expanding all at once, centered entirely on the small alien child who had unexpectedly become the axis of his existence. The barren landscape of Eridani 4, the cracked soil mottled with strange crystalline growths, the broken shards of metallic architecture jutting like the bones of some fallen giant, became a new home, fragile and impermanent, but suffused with the profound urgency of survival. Each breath he took alongside Lyra was heavy with the weight of their isolation, the desolate silence around them broken only by the intermittent crackle of emergency power systems and the distant howl of radiation storms sweeping across the moon's fractured plains. Lyra's eyes, those impossibly large, star-filled orbs, remained locked onto him with a haunting intensity that defied description. They were pools of both innocence and ancient knowledge, as if she carried within her the memories of civilizations lost, of worlds consumed by time and war. She was fragile and vulnerable, yet there was something enduring in the way she looked at him, a spark that refused to be extinguished no matter the horrors she had witnessed or the darkness that surrounded them. When she asked him to be her father, it was not just a plea for protection, it was an offering of trust, a bridge across the vast gulf of their differences, an invitation into a shared future forged by necessity and hope. Adrian was unprepared for the tidal wave of emotions this unleashed within him. Years of discipline and command had taught him to suppress vulnerability, to face loss with stoic resolve, to compartmentalize pain so that duty could prevail. But in the presence of Lyra, that carefully constructed armor began to crack. He found himself haunted by the image of her small, trembling form beneath the rubble, a living beacon in the wreckage of a world torn apart. Her fragile breathing, the way she clung to him with tentative fingers, shattered his sense of invulnerability and reminded him of all he had lost and all he might still protect. The crew of the Aurora's Edge, hardened by years on the frontier and cynical about the fragile alliances and fleeting hopes that defined their lives, were initially wary of the child and even more skeptical of their captain's sudden devotion. To them, space was a place of harsh pragmatism, where sentimentality was a luxury they could ill afford. Yet over time, even the most jaded among them could not deny the transformation unfolding before their eyes. Adrian's fierce protectiveness ignited something in the crew, softening their edges and reminding them of the humanity they often tried to bury beneath protocols and missions. The station's medics worked tirelessly to stabilize Lyra's health, drawing on advanced xenobiological treatments that barely touched the unique biochemistry her body displayed. She needed nourishment synthesized from rare compounds found only in the most hostile environments, and constant care to counteract the mysterious toxins that lingered in her system from the moon's catastrophic fallout. Adrian devoted himself to learning her rhythms, her peculiar habits, and the soft language of hums and gestures she used to communicate in moments when words failed. She rarely spoke, but when she did, it was with a voice like a fragile melody, carrying hints of a dialect long lost to time. Over the quiet evenings beneath the artificial stars of the Aurora's observation deck, he would tell her tales of Earth, of human history and dreams, of distant lands bathed in sunlight and rain, of families bound by love and loyalty. It was in these moments that Lyra's eyes would soften, and for a brief heartbeat, the vast gulf between species felt bridged by the simple power of connection. But the galaxy beyond their fragile sanctuary was never far from their minds. Rumors began to swirl in the distant outposts, and political chambers whispers of a lone human commander raising an alien child with powers and mysteries beyond comprehension. Some saw Lyra as a symbol of hope, a living testament to the enduring spark of life even in the darkest corners of the universe. Others viewed her with fear and suspicion, a potential key to ancient secrets that could shift the balance of power. There were those who believed that Lyra might be the last of her kind, a remnant of a forgotten race whose knowledge and abilities could unlock technologies and powers long buried beneath the stars. And as word spread, so too did the Shadows, agents of distant empires, mercenaries, and scientific factions intent on claiming her for their own purposes. Adrian knew that every moment spent on Eridani IV was a precious gift, a fleeting haven in a galaxy that had no patience for weakness or mercy. Yet he vowed to shield Lyra from those who would exploit or destroy her, to stand as her guardian even if it meant defying forces far beyond his reach. Each decision weighed heavily on him: the risk of staying too long, the danger of moving too soon, the complexity of raising a child whose very existence challenged everything he understood about life and loyalty. Together, they began the slow and painful process of healing physical wounds mended by technology, emotional scars soothed by the quiet presence of companionship. Adrian taught Lyra how to use the environment around her, how to adapt and survive on a moon that was as much enemy as home. She responded with quiet determination, her strength emerging not just in bursts of energy or moments of vulnerability, but in the steady flame of resilience that refused to be extinguished. And through it all, Adrian found himself drawn deeper into a role he had never expected to play: not just a commander or a protector, but a father, a keeper of fragile hope in the vast silence of space. As the days stretched into weeks, the bond between them grew into something unbreakable, a testament to the unexpected ways life could flourish even in the most inhospitable places. Adrian's heart, once hardened by loss and loneliness, began to open to the possibility of love and belonging. And though the galaxy beyond their refuge remained uncertain and dangerous, within the fragile walls of their small sanctuary, a family was born, a beacon of light against the dark, a silent cry answered by steadfast devotion. Yet, in the deepest shadows beyond Eridani IV, eyes watched and waited. Forces long dormant stirred, sensing the awakening of a power they could neither understand nor ignore. The question was no longer if Adrian and Lyra could survive, but if the fragile promise they forged would be strong enough to withstand the coming storm. Chapter 2: Shadows from the Past and a Future Unwritten. The universe, vast and indifferent, had a way of reminding Adrian Miles that safety was often an illusion, a fragile veneer stretched thin over the raw realities lurking just beneath the surface. After the fragile sanctuary of Eridani IV and the newborn bond forged between himself and Lyra, a small alien child with eyes like distant stars, Adrian knew their time in the shadows was limited. The whispers that had begun to echo through the corridors of far-flung space stations and whispered in the ears of cold, calculating diplomats were no longer rumors but approaching storms. Powers both political and clandestine had taken notice of the living enigma cradled in his arms, and the consequences of such attention were as unpredictable as the swirling cosmic storms that ravaged the edges of known space. Adrian stood by the viewport of the Aurora's edge, watching the distant stars blink cold and distant. The ship, aged yet resilient under his skilled hands, was a fortress of fragile hope, carrying two unlikely passengers through the black sea of space. Behind him, in the quiet comfort of the ship's makeshift nursery, Lyra slept fitfully. Her delicate chest rose and fell in uneven rhythms, her faint bioluminescence pulsing softly in the dim light, a silent heartbeat in the endless dark. Adrian's thoughts were a turbulent sea of memories and fears, doubts and dreams. The galaxy beyond was vast, with dangers lurking like shadows in the void, and he was painfully aware that the safety they had found on Eridani IV was temporary at best. The child he had sworn to protect was more than just a fragile survivor of a destroyed world. She was a living puzzle wrapped in layers of mystery and ancient power. Adrian's scans and the station medic's analyses had revealed startling truths. Her physiology was unlike any known species cataloged in the galactic archives. Organic tissue intertwined with energy fields that shimmered like trapped starlight beneath her skin. Neural pathways that resonated with frequencies not found in any known language or technology. Lyra was a bridge between worlds, a living testament to forces that predated the empires sprawling across the stars. To those who sought her, she was a prize, a key to secrets lost for millennia. To Adrian, she was simply his daughter, his responsibility, and the light in his increasingly darkening universe. Their departure from Eridani IV had been cloaked in haste and necessity. Adrian had made the painful decision to leave behind the desolation of the shattered moon, knowing that remaining any longer would expose them to relentless pursuit. As the Aurora's edge slipped through the starless void, their course was plotted for a remote colony known for its relative neutrality and sprawling wilderness, a place where perhaps they could find momentary refuge to understand what fate had thrust upon them. But the journey was far from simple. Every system they passed through was a gauntlet of wary glances, encrypted messages hinting at trackers and bounty hunters, whispers of a price placed on Lyra's existence. Adrian's crew, though loyal and skilled, shared his tension. The galaxy had changed, and the child in their care was a catalyst for forces both seen and unseen. Within the sanctity of the ship's cramped quarters, Adrian grappled with questions that tore at his soul. Who were Lyra's people? What catastrophe had reduced her to a lone survivor, clinging to life in the ruins? Why was her existence so vital that entire factions risked war to claim her? And most painfully, how could he prepare a child so fragile and otherworldly for a universe that seemed poised to consume her? Nights were the hardest. When the stars outside the viewport stretched into streaks of light, and silence wrapped the ship in a cocoon of isolation, Adrian found himself whispering promises into the darkness. Promises to keep her safe, to teach her strength, to be the father she had asked for amid the cruel expanse of space. Lyra, for all her silence and mystery, responded in ways that transcended words. She learned quickly, absorbing the rhythms of the ship, the patterns of human behavior, the subtle art of trust. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, tracked every movement, every gesture, as if deciphering a code written in the language of life itself. Occasionally, she would hum low, melodic tones that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of the ship's systems. Adrian often wondered if her presence was more than biological, if the child was somehow entwined with the technology they relied upon, a living key capable of awakening dormant powers or revealing hidden pathways through the stars. But as they journeyed deeper into uncharted territory, the shadows of the past grew longer. One evening, as the Aurora's edge drifted near a dense nebula whose swirling gases painted the void in hues of violet and silver, an encrypted transmission pierced the ship's communications array. The voice was cold, mechanical, yet laced with unmistakable authority, a message from the Consortium, the galaxy's dominant political and scientific body. "Commander Miles," the voice intoned, "your custody of the alien child known as Lyra is unauthorized. Surrender the subject for examination and integration. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." The word struck like a hammer. Enforcement action, a euphemism that masked threats of military force, abductions, or worse. Adrian's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the flickering readout. The Consortium was no mere bureaucracy. It was an empire wielding power with ruthless precision. To them, Lyra was property, a resource to be exploited for technological advancement or political leverage. To Adrian, she was family. The chasm between those views was a battlefield waiting to erupt. His first instinct was to shield Lyra, to sever communications, and set a course for the Outer Rim where lawlessness might offer cover. But experience taught him that evasion was only temporary. The consortium had reach, and the moment they focused their gaze, few could hide. Instead, Adrian resolved to fight on their terms to gather allies, uncover the truth of Lyra's origins, and build a sanctuary where they could stand together against the encroaching darkness. To do this, Adrian needed information. He delved into the ship's ancient archives, scoured forbidden databases, and pieced together fragments of history scattered across the galaxy. He learned of the race Lyra belonged to, a civilization known as the Illyrians, who had once flourished as masters of bioenergetic manipulation and cosmic engineering. The Illyrians had been custodians of knowledge so profound that their disappearance became a galactic mystery. Some believed they had transcended physical form. Others whispered of a great catastrophe that wiped them from the stars. Lyra, with her unique physiology and luminous presence, was the last known survivor, or perhaps the key to their resurrection. As this truth emerged, the stakes became clearer. The child's survival was not just a personal mission, but a cosmic fulcrum capable of shifting the balance of power among empires, corporations, and hidden factions. Adrian's role expanded beyond protector to reluctant warrior and diplomat, navigating alliances with fringe militias, rogue scientists, and enigmatic alien factions whose motives were as complex as the stars themselves. Yet amid the political intrigue and looming threats, the core of Adrian's resolve remained the same. When Lyra looked up at him with her little eyes, asking him to be her father, she had entrusted him with a future one not yet written, fraught with peril but suffused with hope. And he would stay by her side, through every shadow and storm, because in the vast loneliness of space, they were family. Against the endless night, they were light. The Aurora's edge slipped silently through the void, a speck of humanity's tenacity against the infinite darkness that stretched in all directions. Outside the viewport, stars blazed cold and distant, their light traveling across unimaginable gulfs of space and time, indifferent to the fragile lives that clung to their faint glow. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was thick with tension and quiet resolve. Adrian Miles sat at the navigation console, his hands tracing the worn edges of the controls as his mind raced with the enormity of what lay ahead. Lyra, the small alien child he had sworn to protect, rested in a makeshift cradle nearby, her faint glow pulsing softly like the heartbeat of a nascent star. Every flicker of her delicate bioluminescence seemed to echo the fragile hope that bound them together, a silent beacon in a universe that offered little mercy. Days had passed since the consortium's encrypted ultimatum had shattered the fragile peace of their journey, and the weight of their pursuit pressed relentlessly upon Adrian's shoulders. The message had been clear and uncompromising: surrender Lyra for examination and integration, or face consequences that no captain wanted to confront. Adrian's blood ran cold at the thought of what those words truly meant: legal euphemisms for abduction, exploitation, or worse. The consortium's reach was vast and merciless, a sprawling apparatus of control that wielded technology and influence with iron precision. To them, Lyra was a specimen, a living key to technologies and powers long buried beneath the stars. To Adrian, she was a child, a daughter, a spark of innocence in a galaxy increasingly defined by cold calculation. The challenge was stark and immediate: how to protect the child from forces that wielded entire fleets, clandestine operatives, and mercenaries motivated by greed and fear. How to navigate the treacherous currents of galactic politics when trust was a currency almost as rare as life itself. Adrian knew that evasive maneuvers and hidden routes could only buy them time, not safety. He resolved to take the fight to them, to uncover the secrets that could turn the tide and forge allies in unexpected places. His first step was information and effort that led him deep into the arcane archives of the ship's database and the shadowy networks of the outer colonies. Nights blurred into days as he pored over fragmented data, ancient logs, and encrypted transmissions, piecing together the scattered history of the race to which Lyra belonged, the Illyrians. According to the records, the Illyrians were once a dominant civilization renowned for their mastery of bioenergetic engineering and cosmic harmonics technologies that blurred the lines between organic life and machine, enabling feats that seemed magical to most other species. Their cities were said to have been living organisms, their ships grown rather than built, pulsating with energies that connected them to the very fabric of the universe. But such power came at a cost. The Illyrians vanished from galactic history in a cataclysm that echoed through time and space, a mystery wrapped in layers of myth and conspiracy. Some believed they had transcended their physical forms to merge with the cosmic consciousness. Others whispered of internal strife or external assault that shattered their empire, leaving survivors scattered and broken. Lyra, with her faintly glowing skin and neural resonance, was unlike any being catalogued, a last echo of that lost legacy, or perhaps the key to its rebirth. This revelation deepened the urgency of Adrian's mission. If Lyra embodied the knowledge and power of an ancient race, she was a prize that every major faction, be it empire, corporation, or warlord, would covet. Their journey through the stars was no longer just an escape, but a race against forces hungry for control over secrets that could reshape reality. Adrian's mind churned with the weight of this truth, knowing that each star system they passed brought them closer to confrontation. Yet amid the swirling threats, there were flickers of hope. Contacts from his past old allies and renegades who operated beyond the consortium's reach began to answer his discreet calls. They spoke of hidden sanctuaries on fringe worlds where ancient knowledge was preserved, of factions willing to defy imperial edicts for a cause they barely understood but felt compelled to protect. Alliances had to be forged in shadows, deals struck in hushed tones beneath alien skies. The Aurora's Edge became a vessel not only of flight, but of diplomacy and subterfuge, carrying a burden that transcended its modest size. Inside the ship, Adrian's focus remained unwavering. He immersed himself in teaching Lyra the fundamentals of survival, communication, and the strange customs of humanity. Though she was slow to trust, her intellect was sharp beyond comprehension. She absorbed his lessons with a hunger that betrayed a yearning for connection and understanding. Her own unique abilities sometimes surfaced in small, uncontrollable bursts, faint energy pulses that interacted with the ship's systems, or neural flashes that hinted at memories not her own. Adrian watched these moments with a mixture of awe and concern, aware that Lyra's powers were both a gift and a vulnerability. Their nights were often spent beneath the observation deck, watching the stars dance across the void, as Adrian told stories of Earth, the blue planet he called home, where rain fell in gentle rhythms and forests whispered ancient secrets, where humanity had risen from humble beginnings to reach for the stars. Lyra listened with wide eyes, occasionally reaching out to touch the holographic images projected before them. In those moments, the gulf between their worlds seemed bridged by the simplest human act, sharing a story, creating a family. But even as they forged this fragile bond, Adrian felt the tightening noose of their pursuers. The consortium was relentless, dispatching agents cloaked in shadows, armed with technology designed to infiltrate and control. There were encounters that left scars, sudden attacks in the dead of space, evasive jumps through uncharted systems, and moments where the Aurora's Edge barely escaped destruction. Each confrontation reinforced the stakes, driving home the reality that Lyra's survival depended on more than stealth. It demanded courage, cunning, and the willingness to fight against overwhelming odds. Yet through it all, Adrian's resolve never wavered. He had made a promise in the silence of a shattered moon, a promise born not of duty but of love. The child who had looked up at him with those little, star-filled eyes had entrusted him with a future, uncertain and dangerous, but theirs to claim. As the Aurora's Edge hurtled through the infinite night, carrying the fragile light of hope against a galaxy poised on the brink of darkness, Adrian understood that their journey was only beginning. Together, they would face shadows from the past and forge a future unwritten, bound by a bond that transcended species and space. No matter what lay ahead, he would stay by her side. Chapter 3: The Weight of Worlds and the Bonds That Bind. The galaxy, in all its sprawling complexity and unfathomable vastness, had never been kind to those who dared to stand apart from its ruthless tides. For Commander Adrian Miles and the child he had vowed to protect Lyra, the journey through the cosmos was no longer a mere flight for survival, but a pilgrimage through the tangled web of history, power, and sacrifice. The Aurora's Edge had become more than a ship. It was a refuge, a sanctuary amid the encroaching shadows, a fragile bastion of hope against forces that sought to unravel everything they represented. But with every light year traveled, the weight of their mission pressed heavier on Adrian's shoulders, and the fragile threads of their bond were tested in ways he could scarcely have imagined. Lyra, once the silent child trembling beneath the ruins of Eridani IV, was awakening not just in body but in spirit and power. The subtle pulses of energy that shimmered beneath her skin had grown stronger, more deliberate, a symphony of ancient resonance that intertwined with the ship's own systems in ways that defied conventional understanding. Adrian had spent countless hours watching her, learning to read the nuances of her expressions, the delicate shifts in her bioluminescence, the whispers of emotion that crossed her vast, star-like eyes. She was a child of paradox, fragile and fierce, mysterious and achingly familiar. To Adrian, she was both a puzzle and a promise, a living bridge between forgotten pasts and an uncertain future. Their travels had brought them to the edge of the Solari Nebula, a breathtaking expanse of swirling gases and stellar nurseries painted in hues of violet, sapphire, and gold. The nebula was a place of legend, whispered among starfarers as a crossroads where the veil between worlds thinned and secrets long buried might surface. It was here that Adrian hoped to find sanctuary, to seek allies among the fringe factions who operated beyond the reach of the consortium's iron grip. Yet even amid the nebula's haunting beauty, the specter of pursuit loomed large. Their sensors picked up faint signals, encrypted and elusive but unmistakably tracking. The consortium's hunters were closing in, relentless and unforgiving. Adrian's mind raced as he navigated the Aurora through the swirling cosmic clouds, each decision a delicate balance between stealth and speed. The crew worked in tense synchrony, their skills honed by years of survival on the galactic edge, but even their experience was tested by the growing power radiating from Lyra. Her presence was no longer subtle. It was a beacon, drawing eyes and forces that might herald salvation or doom. The child herself was both unaware and deeply aware, a paradox that unsettled Adrian to his core. Moments of childish innocence would suddenly give way to flashes of ancient wisdom, her eyes reflecting memories that stretched across stars and centuries. Amid this turmoil, Adrian sought to nurture the fragile humanity blossoming within Lyra. He shared with her tales of Earth, not the sprawling cities or the wars that had scarred its surface, but the quiet moments of connection, the simple acts of kindness that had defined his own childhood. Under the glow of artificial stars on the observation deck, he would tell her of rain and forests, of laughter and loss, of families bound not by blood but by love and choice. Lyra listened with rapt attention, her fingers tracing the holographic images as if reaching for a world she had never known. In these moments, the gulf between species seemed to narrow, bridged by the universal language of hope and belonging. But the universe was not content to grant reprieve. One night, as the Aurora drifted in the nebula's twilight, the ship was rocked by a sudden barrage of energy pulses. Shields flared and alarms blared as a sleek, black warship emerged from the swirling mists, a predator in the cosmic depths, a consortium interceptor intent on capturing its quarry. The ensuing battle was fierce and chaotic, a desperate dance of evasive maneuvers and retaliatory fire that tested every ounce of skill and courage aboard the Aurora. Adrian's heart pounded as he issued orders, each command a thread holding the fragile fabric of their survival together. Lyra, for her part, remained calm amid the storm. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light, and subtle pulses of energy rippled from her, interfacing with the ship's systems in ways that bolstered their defenses and disrupted the enemy's targeting. It was as if the child was awakening to her role, not just a survivor, but a force unto herself, intertwined with the fate of the ship and crew. The battle raged until, through a combination of skill, luck, and Lyra's inexplicable powers, the interceptor was forced to retreat, leaving the Aurora battered but alive. The aftermath left the crew shaken but resolute. Adrian knew this was only the beginning, that the consortium would not relent, and that the secrets Lyra embodied were coveted by many. Yet amid the danger, a deeper transformation was taking place. The fragile family they had formed was evolving into a bond forged in fire and shadow, a unity that transcended the vast divides of species and experience. Adrian, once a lone soldier hardened by loss and duty, found himself reborn as a father, a protector, and a beacon of hope in a darkening galaxy. As the Aurora's Edge resumed its journey through the star-streaked void, carrying the weight of worlds and the promise of a future unwritten, Adrian and Lyra faced the unknown together, bound by a love born of loss and choice, shining brightly against the endless night. The Aurora's Edge carved a solitary path through the vast, unknowable void, a speck of human determination against the endless tapestry of stars and darkness. Inside the cramped, humming corridors of the ship, the quiet rhythm of their journey was punctuated by moments of stillness, whispered fears, and fragile hope. Adrian Miles, once a hardened commander hardened by countless battles and loss, now found himself transformed by the gravity of his new charge, a child whose very existence defied logic and whose essence pulsed with the power of a forgotten civilization. Lyra was no ordinary child, and the more he uncovered about her, the heavier the burden of his promise weighed upon him. In the dim light of the observation deck, Adrian often sat beside her cradle, watching the faint, ethereal glow of her skin flicker like distant, captive starlight. Her large, shimmering eyes would meet his with a mixture of curiosity and trust, and sometimes, just sometimes, a flicker of something resembling hope. Those moments were precious, fragile threads woven through a tapestry otherwise darkened by uncertainty and relentless pursuit. Every day brought new challenges, deciphering the mysterious resonance of her bioluminescent tattoos, nurturing her fragile health with carefully synthesized compounds, and preparing for the inevitable confrontations that awaited them among the stars. The nebula of Solari was behind them now, its haunting beauty a fleeting memory as they entered the uncharted expanse known as the Veil, a region infamous among smugglers and outlaws, a chaotic maze of stellar debris, rogue planets, and fractured space-time anomalies. It was here, in the lawless fringes, that Adrian hoped to find sanctuary and allies who could stand against the consortium's relentless reach. But the Veil was no safe harbor. It was a place of shadows, where loyalties shifted like cosmic dust, and betrayal was a currency as common as air. Despite the dangers, they encountered unexpected kindness. Among the drifting asteroids and forgotten relics of ancient starfarers, Adrian met Captain Kayla Voss, leader of the Iron Serpent, a rogue faction dedicated to resisting the consortium's dominion. Kayla was a force of nature herself, a tall, fierce woman with cybernetic enhancements that gleamed beneath weathered armor, eyes sharp as a hawk's, and a reputation forged in countless skirmishes. When Adrian revealed Lyra's identity and the threat looming over them, Kayla's expression hardened with a mix of resolve and caution. The alliance forged in the shadowed caverns of the Veil was tenuous but vital, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. As days turned into weeks, the Aurora's Edge and the Iron Serpent wove a fragile network of resistance, striking at consortium supply lines, disrupting intelligence gathering, and gathering whispers of a deeper conspiracy surrounding Lyra's origins. Adrian learned that the consortium's interest in the Illyrians was not merely scientific curiosity, it was a quest for dominion over powers that could rewrite the very fabric of existence. Lyra was a living repository of that power, a key to technologies and cosmic energies that could shift the balance of entire star systems. In the quiet moments between danger and diplomacy, Adrian's role deepened beyond that of protector to teacher and father. He taught Lyra to trust her own instincts, to harness the flickers of power that surged unpredictably through her body. He shared stories of Earth, of humanity's triumphs and failures, of love and loss, filling the gaps in her memory with a legacy of hope. Lyra's responses were subtle but profound, a soft hum that resonated through the ship's hull, a faint glow that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, a smile that broke through the veil of mystery to reveal the child beneath the legend. But the past was never far behind. One fateful encounter shattered their fragile sanctuary. A covert strike team, cloaked in darkness and armed with weapons designed to neutralize bioenergetic anomalies, infiltrated the Aurora's edge under the cover of a spatial storm. The assault was swift and brutal, designed to capture Lyra alive and silence those who protected her. The ship's alarms screamed a warning as Adrian rallied his crew, his instincts honed by years of combat. The corridors became a battlefield, echoes of gunfire and energy pulses reverberating through the steel bones of the vessel. Lyra, despite her youth, revealed a courage and power that stunned even the hardened soldiers. Her bioluminescent skin flared like a living nebula, pulses of energy surging outward in defensive waves that disrupted the attacker's systems and shielded those she loved. It was a glimpse of the Illyrian legacy power intertwined with the cosmos, fierce and untamed. But the cost was high. The battle left the ship scarred, the crew shaken, and Adrian more determined than ever to safeguard the child's future. In the aftermath, as the ship drifted through the remnants of the storm, Adrian held Lyra close, whispering promises of protection and love. The galaxy was a tempest of shadows and light, and together they were a fragile flame in the dark. Yet in that moment, surrounded by silence and the vastness of space, the bond between them burned brighter than any star, a testament to the enduring power of hope, family, and sacrifice. Their journey was far from over. The weight of worlds pressed upon them, but Adrian knew that as long as they faced the stars together, they could carve a future unwritten, one born not of fear or fate, but of love. Chapter 4: A Future Forged in Starlight. The galaxy was no longer a place of quiet distance for Adrian Miles and the child who had become his heart and purpose. It was a battleground, a crucible where destinies were tested and forged amid the swirling chaos of stars and shadows. The Aurora's edge, battered but unyielding, had carried them through storms of fire and deception, across nebulous tombs of ancient civilizations and the fractured borders of warring factions. Now, as they drifted toward the edge of known space, toward a place whispered about in legend and dread alike, the weight of all that had come before settled heavily on their shoulders. But beneath that burden burned an unquenchable flame, the promise of a future they would shape together, against all odds. Lyra, once the fragile child found among ruins, had grown in ways that transcended mere years. Her bioluminescent skin radiated with the soft glow of cosmic energy, her large eyes reflecting a depth of wisdom and power that belied her youth. The Illyrian legacy coursed through her veins, awakening in bursts of radiant force that could light the darkest void or heal the deepest wounds. Adrian had become more than her protector. He was her mentor, her anchor, and the father she had asked for beneath the shattered moon. Together, they had weathered betrayal and battle, fear and hope, forging a bond that bridged species and stars. Their destination was a hidden sanctuary known as Solace, a remote world shrouded in nebular mists and shielded by ancient technologies long forgotten. It was a refuge for those who sought to preserve knowledge and life beyond the reach of empires and corporations. Here, among the towering crystalline forests and rivers that shimmered with liquid light, Adrian hoped to find not just safety, but answers to the mysteries that surrounded Lyra's origins and the path that lay ahead. But the journey to Solace was perilous. The consortium's pursuit had intensified, its fleets and agents closing in like a tightening noose. Skirmishes erupted in the void, fleeting and deadly encounters where the Aurora's edge relied on every ounce of speed, skill, and the enigmatic power that Lyra now wielded with growing mastery. Each battle left scars on the ship, the crew, and Adrian's soul. The cost of protection was steep, but surrender was not an option. For Lyra, for the fragile hope they represented, Adrian would face any darkness, any storm. As they approached Solace, the Aurora's edge slipped through a labyrinth of gravitational anomalies and shimmering energy fields, guided by cryptic coordinates whispered among outlaws and mystics. The planet unfolded before them like a jewel, a tapestry of iridescent skies, floating islands bathed in perpetual twilight, and ancient ruins pulsating with forgotten power. It was a world alive with magic and technology intertwined, a place where the echoes of the Illyrians still whispered through the air and the ground itself seemed to breathe. Upon landing, Adrian and Lyra were greeted by the guardians of Solace, an enigmatic order of scholars, warriors, and mystics dedicated to preserving the balance between life and the cosmos. The guardians recognized Lyra as the last starborn, a child of prophecy and power, destined to rekindle the ancient harmony lost to the galaxy's endless wars. Their sanctuary became a crucible of transformation, where Lyra's powers were honed, her memories unlocked, and her purpose revealed. Within the crystalline halls of Solace, Adrian found himself confronted with truths that challenged everything he believed. The Illyrians had not merely vanished, they had ascended beyond physical form, becoming custodians of cosmic knowledge and guardians of life's delicate balance. Lyra was their bridge, the living key to awakening a new era of understanding and unity. But such power came with immense responsibility and danger. Forces from across the galaxy sought to claim or destroy her, fearing the upheaval she represented. In the days that followed, Adrian witnessed Lyra's evolution from a child of wonder to a beacon of light and strength. Her connection to the cosmic energies deepened, manifesting in dazzling displays of creation and healing. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin shifted like living constellations, each glow a story, a memory, a promise. She moved with grace and purpose, embodying the legacy of her ancestors and the hope of countless lives intertwined in the stars. Yet amid the sanctuary's serenity, shadows gathered. The consortium launched a final, devastating assault, a fleet of warships descending upon Solace with the intent to seize or annihilate the last starborn. The Guardians, though fierce and wise, were outmatched by the relentless tide of Imperial firepower. The battle that ensued was cataclysmic, a clash of light and darkness that shook the very foundations of the world. Adrian stood at Lyra's side, the weight of the universe pressing upon him. Together, they faced the storm, her radiant energy a shield against the onslaught, his unwavering resolve a beacon to those who fought for freedom and hope. The battle was fierce and desperate, but within the chaos, a new truth emerged. The power to shape the future lay not in dominion or destruction, but in the bonds forged through love, sacrifice, and unyielding faith. As the dust settled and the stars bore witness, Adrian held Lyra close, whispering the promise that had carried them through countless trials. "I will stay by your side," he vowed, "not just as your guardian, but as your father, your family, your home." In that moment, beneath the endless canopy of starlight, their journey found its meaning. They were no longer fugitives or survivors, they were the architects of a future unwritten, a light in the vast darkness, a testament to the enduring power of hope and love. And so, amidst the ruins and the stars, a new chapter began, one born of courage, unity, and the unbreakable bonds that bind us all. The stars beyond the viewport of the Aurora's edge stretched into infinite points of cold fire, indifferent witnesses to the fragile lives threading through their light. For Commander Adrian Miles and Lyra, the child who had transformed from a trembling survivor into a beacon of hope and power, the vastness of space had become both a prison and a promise. Every journey, every narrow escape, every fleeting moment of peace was a precious gift weighed against the relentless storm of forces determined to claim the living legacy she embodied. Yet despite the unyielding pressure of the galaxy's darkest ambitions, a new chapter was unfolding. A story not merely of survival, but of transcendence, love, and the forging of a future that no empire or shadow could erase. Their path had led them to Solace, a world shrouded in cosmic mystery and ancient power. This hidden sanctuary, cradled in nebular mists and surrounded by crystalline forests that sang with the energy of long-forgotten stars, was more than a refuge. It was the heart of a legacy, a place where the last echoes of the Illyrians resonated through time and space, where knowledge and spirit intertwined like threads in a grand cosmic tapestry. The Guardians of Solace, enigmatic stewards of balance and wisdom, had welcomed them with cautious reverence, recognizing Lyra as the last starborn, the final hope to rekindle the harmony that once sustained the galaxy. Adrian's days here were a blend of wonder and unrelenting responsibility. The child's powers blossomed under the tutelage of the Guardian's energies that could heal worlds or rend realities, that pulsed in harmony with the cosmic forces binding galaxies together. The bioluminescent tattoos on her skin shifted and danced like living constellations, revealing stories of creation and destruction, of light piercing through darkness. Adrian watched her with awe and fear, knowing that such power was both a blessing and a curse, a beacon that attracted allies and enemies alike. Yet beneath the marvel and mystery, their bond deepened, a father and daughter united not by blood, but by unbreakable love and shared destiny. The peace of solace, however, was a fragile veneer stretched over the brewing tempest. The consortium, a vast empire wielding technology and influence with ruthless precision, had dispatched its most formidable forces to seize the last starborn. What followed was a siege unlike any Adrian had witnessed, a ballet of fire and fury beneath twin moons, where ancient energies clashed with cold imperial steel. The battle raged across the crystalline plains and through forests shimmering with liquid light, the air thick with the thunder of weapons and the crackling pulse of cosmic power. Adrian stood at the forefront, a steadfast sentinel. The Aurora's Edge, now allied with the Guardians and the rogue fleet of Captain Kalavas, danced through the maelstrom of war, their ships weaving through barges of plasma and laser fire. Lyra, radiant and fierce, became the heart of their defense, her powers flaring in brilliant arcs that shattered enemy formations and healed fallen allies. The battlefield was a kaleidoscope of light and shadow, where the fate of galaxies balanced on the edge of a blade. In the crucible of conflict, Adrian's resolve crystallized. He was no longer just a commander. He was a father fighting for his daughter's future, a guardian of hope in a universe teetering on the brink of despair. Each moment of victory was tempered by loss, each breath a reminder of the sacrifices etched into their journey. Yet even as the consortium's forces closed in for a final assault, the spirit of unity and resistance burned brighter than any weapon. The climax of the battle unfolded beneath the swirling auroras of Solace's skies, where Adrian and Lyra faced the consortium's high executor, a figure cloaked in shadows and wielding technology that twisted the fabric of reality itself. The confrontation was fierce and harrowing, a collision of wills and power that tested the limits of their strength and courage. Lyra's energy surged with unprecedented force, her luminous form casting radiant light that pierced the darkness. Adrian fought beside her, their movements a symphony of determination and love. In the final, breathless moments, it was not might alone that decided their fate, but the unyielding bond between father and daughter. Adrian's whispered words of encouragement, the touch of his hand grounding her, kindled a power that transcended the physical, a harmony of spirit that shattered the consortium's grip and illuminated the path to a new dawn. The High Executor fell, his shadows dissipating into the void, and with him, the suffocating weight of tyranny. As silence reclaimed the battlefield, the survivors looked to the sky, where the stars shone with renewed brilliance. Solace was scarred but free, its legacy preserved through the courage of those who dared to defy fate. Adrian held Lyra close, feeling the steady pulse of her life against his chest, a living promise of resilience and hope. Around them, the Guardians and allies began the work of healing, rebuilding not just their world but the fractured dreams of a galaxy yearning for peace. In the days that followed, Adrian and Lyra stood before the gathered assembly, a tapestry of races, cultures, and histories woven together by shared struggle and triumph. The child's radiant light cast shimmering patterns that danced across faces etched with hope and remembrance. She was no longer just a survivor or a symbol. She was a beacon, the living embodiment of a future where unity and compassion could overcome the darkness. Adrian spoke then, his voice steady and filled with the weight of their journey. He spoke of love forged in the crucible of loss, of courage born from despair, and of the unbreakable bonds that define family beyond the bounds of blood. He vowed to stand by Lyra's side, not as a commander or guardian alone, but as a father and anchor in the ever-shifting tides of the cosmos. Their story, though scarred by hardship, was a testament to the enduring power of hope and connection. In a universe vast and often cruel, they had carved a sanctuary of light, a future forged in starlight, where the fragile threads of trust, and love could weave new legends among the stars. And so, beneath the eternal canopy of galaxies, Adrian and Lyra faced the endless night together, not as fugitives or survivors, but as family, shining brightly against the darkness. Bound by a promise whispered in the silence of space, I will stay by your side.